is, do you know why caffeine might make BPDR worse? Okay. So this is something that often comes up. I think people believe, don't they, that caffeine causes anxiety, which isn't true.
Yeah, no, it's not at all. Caffeine can, well, alter your state a little bit, can't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't cause anxiety.
No, no,
I think
it
that's
can.
the misconception here, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So it can mimic the effects of anxiety. So it can give us racing heart, it can give us racing thoughts, it can make us feel really high alert.
Yeah.
But that isn't the same as
Giving
feeling
you,
anxious.
yeah, it's not the same as giving you anxiety, is it?
No.
It can simulate the similar sensations, but it doesn't give you anxiety.
No, no. But for people who are frightened of and who have a fear of BPDR, for example, if you are struggling with a fear of fear and you then have a thing of coffee and it makes you feel like you're on high alert, that can feel scary. So actually, for a lot of people, a part of their exposure therapy is about going and drinking coffee on purpose, isn't it?
Reintroducing things that you would normally like to do. So normal, non-anxious versions of them would like to have the cup of coffee, but it might be something that they end up avoiding because of what comes along with it, which can be quite uncomfortable.
Yeah. But what we always say, it's like going with your values. So what that might look like is going with your friend to go and have a cup of coffee, even if you're scared the BPDR is going to come on, even if you're anxious, it's going to be triggering. We go and do it anyway. Okay. It's safe. It's absolutely safe, isn't it?
Absolutely it is.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Next one. I suffer with DPDR from a bad high on cannabis. Weed influenced DPDR. Any more tips?
Okay. Well, this in particular, I know many people often feel like they have had, DPDR as a result of smoking weed, taking LSD, getting high.
It is quite common, isn't it?
Really
We do
common.
see it quite a lot. It's like, oh yeah. Because actually, one of the ways I've heard DPDR described in the past as it's like I smoked a joint, but without smoking the joint. Like the feeling of DPDR is it's like I got high without smoking weed.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people, often what will happen is they get too high, they freak out, they panic, and then as a result, the DPDR comes on. And this is really important to recognize, okay? So it isn't the weed or whatever the drug it is that gave you DPDR. Weed sometimes can equal panic, and it's the panic that can lead to the DPDR. And this is really important because I know sometimes people can think, oh, I've messed up my brain, I've ruined my mental health forever because I had that joint. And that isn't true. Okay, you panicked, and we just need to work on your relationship with that as a symptom.
Your brain's just interpreted that situation as a threat, hasn't it? That's what it's picked up on. And it's trying to maybe search for a way to plonk it all into like the root cause of all. The root cause of all this was my weed, yes.
Yeah, that's really important, actually, what Andy just said. Whereas no, the root cause isn't the weed, the root cause is you panicked and then you became frightened of the panic. So my advice would be, what you need to do is to work on your relationship with DPDR in and of itself. You can do things called interoceptive exposures, which is where you purposefully bring on, usually with a therapist, you bring on the sensation of DPDR. So what that might look like is you might stare at a white wall for ages, you might look in the mirror for ages, and that might freak you out and make you feel disconnected. And yeah, that's a good way that you can do that as an exposure. I feel like you're not quite in the shot here, Andy. Come and shuffle on in.
Just trying to keep an eye on if anyone else comments.
Okay. All right then. Well, the next question is, so it says here, whenever I get sick, so I run down and I have the flu, I have a hard time believing that I'm just sick and not that I'm perhaps feeling more depressed or getting mentally unwell again. I can't stop focusing on how I'm feeling and trying to get certainty on the fact that I'm actually just sick. And this can cause a setback in the person's OCD.
Yeah, that can be really tricky, can't it? Because when you feel sick, you don't feel quite 100% yourself.
No, of course you don't.
Yeah, like we were saying before, you can it leads to you wanting to go very inwards focused as how am I feeling. A lot of body scanning as well can come from that, can't it? Which I know is quite a common compulsion. But yeah, if you're sort of laying in bed with the flu or not feeling well, it's only natural that you're not going to be able to quite fully access your life. So this person said here that, they're worried that they're going to be depressed. Makes sense, really, that, you can't access your life in a way that you normally would when you're feeling ill, which can often feel a bit like depression.
Yeah, of course. If you're lying in bed and you can't get up and out of bed because you don't feel too good, Yeah, if you have a fear of depression, which I think is what this person might be experiencing, and they might be struggling with their mental health, they might have mental health anxiety, and therefore anything that feels like depression can set off that panic. Okay, so my advice for this person, first of all, I think when we are unwell, attention naturally goes inwards. We naturally scan. That isn't your fault. That's not a setback. That's what our brain does when we're ill. It's about allowing some space for that and recognizing that's okay. I think that's a big part of it. And another part, it sounds like you probably are struggling with a mental health anxiety, mental health OCD, and I would really work on that with.
And the last bit as well, I find that getting sick really sets me back in my OCD progress. I think it's really important to stress that just because you feel sick or unwell, or just because that might potentially lead to you feeling a little bit anxious, that doesn't mean it's a setback. It doesn't mean you've gone backwards.
No, absolutely not. A setback is when you start to do the compulsions, try and do something about the anxiety. You might go back onto Google. You might start reassurance seeking. If you're doing that stuff, yeah, okay, that might be a bit of a setback. But we just need to look at reducing your compulsions when you are triggered. That's all. All right then. So I'm going to look on to the next question now. Let me just scroll down a little. Oh, I quite like this question. I feel like we've got a lot to say about that.
Yeah. I would love to know where to begin with strategies to manage anxiety in places where DPDR/visual issues crop up, like in social situations. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, the key word here, obviously, if you've been working on recovery for a while, I'm sure you know where I'm going to go with this, is how can I manage? What are strategies to cope with anxiety? Okay. So if you're new to this way of working, you're new to recovery, you might have been in therapy before where you've been given coping strategies like, oh, hold on to an ice cube, or I don't know, like other self-regulating strategies. When you are where you are and you are struggling with disordered anxiety and a fear of fear, the last thing that we want to do is to give you coping strategies, because all that that's doing is teaching your brain, I can't cope, anxiety is dangerous, and it's something to be scared of.
Yeah, and it's a slippery slope as well. If you essentially turn your recovery, what you learn in recovery, into a technique and apply that to, in an attempt to get rid of the anxiety.
I did this for a long time.
I think it's recovery OCD, so that can become a theme as well, can't it? And when you take everything that you've learned in recovery and then try to apply it in an attempt to get rid of your anxiety, and it doesn't work, and you've turned it into a technique, and that's not what we kind of promote, is it?
No, I know Joshua Fletcher, my old therapist, is brilliant. He calls that techniquifying. And yeah, it was a pitfall I fell into for a really long time. Okay. So to answer this person's question, so how can I manage anxiety and issues in situations such as social occasions? We're not going to teach you how to manage, but actually we're going to help you go towards these things. So what that might look like is we might make a fear ladder of exposures. So the most difficult thing at the top, that might be going to a big family wedding. And at the bottom, it might be nipping to your mum's house for a break. And we start at the bottom and we gently work our way up whilst learning to tolerate the difficult sensations, to tolerate the scary feelings. And it isn't just about raw dogging it and just going for it and, seeing what happens. I mean, we can do that, but we can also keep with us something called self-compassion, which is where we learn to speak to ourselves kindly as we go along. We learn to kind of give ourselves, I don't know, it's just a bit of self-love,
gentle encouragement.
Self-love, encouragement. Something that can help is something called calendar thinking, where you come back to this very moment right now. It's like, I'm just in this moment. I don't need to worry about if I'm going to panic or if the anxiety is going to get worse. Even in 2 minutes time, come back to this moment right now. 5 senses can be helpful. Mindfulness. There's so many techniques that we can teach when it comes to coming back to right now, but ultimately it's your attention, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Then, I
think as well, just on that one as well, I think, in terms of techniques to help manage the anxiety, I think maybe trying to reframe that as you can manage your response to it. You can't manage the anxiety itself, but you can manage your response to it.
No, you can, absolutely. It's all about, it's not about getting rid of the anxiety, it's about learning to tolerate it. Yeah, I can see Matt Bannister talk about the five senses and self-compassion. You'll probably recognise this work. I've taken it from Kimberly Quinlan's work. Brilliant, brilliant therapist. Willingness, having a willingness to feel the sensations of panic and taking that with you. But yeah, okay. I feel like this one might be a good one for you.
Oh, yes. How do I know I'm not actually in the Truman Show? Nobody gets it, and my OCD doesn't believe them, even when they reassure me. So how can I ever know? How do you ever know that you're not actually in the Truman Show? You don't. You just kind of have to lean into that uncertainty, really, much like I did. It's very scary, but you kind of just have to go with the overwhelming probability that you're not. Yeah, you can't ever know 100%. No. And it's something we spoke about a little bit, wasn't it? That you can maybe arrive at a place of acceptance that this is something that crops up for you now and again, and you can never fully know if you are or not.
No. And it's the seeking of the certainty, trying to figure out for sure that you're not in the Truman Show, that causes the distress. That is the compulsiveness. So if you can let go of the compulsion, the fear might still be there, but it's not going to rule your life for hours and hours, day in, day out. Okay, so in short, we can't know for sure, and that's the thing. We can't know for sure, and that is literally the point when it comes to recovery. We're not meant to know for sure. We're meant to allow. Go ahead.
No, I just accidentally clicked up.
All right, okay. But yeah, you just need to lean into that uncertainty. All right then. Should we take maybe some of the live questions if you want to? Is there something you need to do over here? Sorry.
Do you have visual snow too? Well, we've both had individual experiences of it, haven't we?
Yeah. I certainly, I remember this was a big theme for me. I talk about this a lot in my other videos, but yeah, I was officially diagnosed with visual snow syndrome. And yeah, this was really painful for me at the time. I remember I went to Manchester Eye Hospital. I had MRI scans. I had those things where they put the drops in your eye and your pupils dilate. Every test under the sun, and yeah, I was diagnosed with visual snow syndrome. And to answer your question, yeah, but I wouldn't say that I still struggle with it anymore. I still have the odd visual disturbance from time to time, but I've learned to leave it alone, and it's settled down tremendously, and I don't even notice it nowadays.
Yeah, we both have very different experiences of it as well, don't we? And I think it was only 2 weeks ago I was saying to you that with a lot of the work I've been doing recently has been more geared towards visual snow, and once it's in your awareness, I had a bit of a sticky one a couple of days ago where I became hyperfixated on it, and it felt like it stuck for a little bit. And yeah, it's just about changing your reaction to the symptoms. It's never about trying to make it go away.
No, and as a result, it will settle down.
Because initially where I slipped up was, oh no, you focused on it, it's latched, and you need to try and get it, ignore it, try and make it go away, and then actually, Andrew, no, you need to practice what you preach to your clients and just change your response to it and get up and go about your day, and if it wants to come along with you, it can do.
It can come. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, you've got so many more questions than I anticipated. Sure. Let's just take a minute and have a look through some of the questions so we can get around to it.
When I was suffering from DPDR, I always thought I was dead or probably. The thing that did it for me was thinking, well, if I am, I can't do anything about it. Just continue with life or death.
Yeah. So I can't do anything about it. Just acceptance. Just like, yep, if I'm dead, if I'm dissociating, if I'm in the Truman Show, there's nothing I can do about it. Let me just carry on with life. Yeah, that sounds like acceptance, and sounds like that's worked for you.
Okay, let's suppose if someone's mind doesn't get convinced / moves away by just conversational therapy and doesn't want to get involved in exposure therapy, as it's a bit scary for the same again. I don't know.
Okay. Well, if exposure therapy feels scary for you,
then what should be the followed up?
What should be the course of therapy? Yeah. So if you're frightened to start exposure therapy, that is absolutely okay. Like, that is really, really okay. Exposure therapy is scary, and that is the point. The point is to bring on anxiety and fear to learn that you can tolerate it. My advice is, first of all, you're never going to be ready. And if you're waiting to feel ready to do it, that feeling ready is not
There's never the one perfect moment, is there? You don't just wake up. Also, there might be days where you feel more prepared to do it than others, but there's never going to be a day where the doors swing open and you think, right, that's it. Now it's plain sailing from here on out. There are going to be days when it's hard, but you have to behave how you want to feel, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So baby steps, teeny, tiny baby steps. If you take whatever was at the bottom of your fear ladder and think, how can I make this even easier for myself? Then, we can just scale that back. Okay.
All right, I've got here. Any supplement I can buy at shop to make DPDR better? No, do not do this. What you're doing there, whatever you see on the internet or might be able to find in the shop, but I can't even think of anything off the top of my head. CBD oils, All you're doing then is placing conditions on you being okay. You're going to teach your brain that I'm okay as long as I have this magic supplement or I have this essential oil or magic crystal or anything like that.
Yeah.
That is not
so harmful. I would even say harmful. Stay away from supplement, anything that you're doing just in case to try and make it go away.
Yeah.
We need to let go of those.
It's just another safety behavior, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just another safety behavior.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at your questions. I can't believe how many we're getting.
Matt, that's one. Could you both maybe talk on how you learned not to give visual snow no value, or how you had the mindset shift?
Oh, I can talk about that. I remember. I can tell you the memory. I can tell you the day when I decided to do this. So, I had spent from when my visual snow first onset. I had spent, honestly, I think it was about a month and a bit, in bed, crying, in agony with it, writhing around. I lived at home with my mum and dad at the time. I was in my early 20s. And I remember one day my friend said to me, Ferne, do you want to come play in pool tonight? And I felt like I was faced with a decision. I was like, do I stay in bed on Google in agony, crying, talking about how awful this is? Or do I go and play pool with my friends? And I can still remember that day when I went and played pool with my friends. And I remember playing. And all of a sudden, I was like, I've not noticed my visual snow for about 5 minutes here. And I was like, there's something in this. And I carried on playing pool. And the next day, I went back to work. And then so on and so forth. I started to get my life back. And I was like, I've not noticed this in a day. And a day became 2, became 3, became a week.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment when I was like, there's something about, I didn't know what this was at the time, but there's something about going with your values and doing your hobbies and your interests that help you to leave it alone. It becomes less important and you don't notice it anymore.
I was just about to say, sort of going on the values thing, if you can find things that sort of lean into your values that you can use on your recovery journey, that is such an important thing to take with you. From my experience, especially with like floaters and stuff, I always go on about a therapy room that I used to hire. And it was just painted bright white, and I would find myself sort of, because it can be quite a stressful job, and I would find myself sometimes noticing floaters going across like my vision on the white wall in the background, and I would start to dread being in this particular room, and I would want to avoid it and not go, but then actually no, that's getting in the way of my value of wanting to, I don't know, help people and something that I value. I value my career. So then once you it's kind of like a camera focusing in and out, I find, with the person in front of me, especially once I was able to actually no, I'm not going to sort of look at these floaters going across the wall. If I can sort of like refocus my attention on the person in front of me,
your value,
on my value, exactly.
Let's have a look at some other questions.
So would you say no medication is better for visual snow?
Okay, so this is just my opinion. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. And if anybody chooses to be on medication, that is 100% your choice. For me, personally, when it comes to anxious recovery in general, I know you use a good analogy for this, don't you? It's like, using medication is fine. It's absolutely fine, but it's not going to run the race for you, okay? So it can help turn down the volume, but visual snow and other anxieties, they are a behavioural problem. They're an attention problem.
Behaviour change leads the way in recovery, doesn't it? And, there's absolutely no judgment if you feel as though you need to take medication.
No.
I always use and it's not mine, I stole it from Sally Winston, who I think is amazing. It's almost like you have to learn to swim again. And medication is almost like, okay, you're learning to swim again, but medication is almost like the armbands in a pool.
They help.
But, they help. They can be helpful at the start. In the short term, but long term, it's probably not the best
No, no. And you know, what am I trying to say? I can understand why people would choose to go on medication. And I remember being in the real depths of my OCD, and I remember I would say to you, remember, I'm like, another week of this and I'm going on them meds.
Yeah.
One more week of this and that's it.
We absolutely understand.
I never did. Because I really wanted to just work through that and learn and build up my tolerance. But yeah, for me, behavioural approach is the most important.
Yeah. Does FL41 tinted glasses help with visual snow?
Not the tinted glasses again.
I know. I think this is something we talk about quite a lot, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you're familiar with the cycle of OCD, there's something called compulsions. Compulsions are things that we do in order to get rid of or push away the anxiety. But unfortunately, all that they do is they teach us that the thing that we're trying to get rid of, if it's visual snow, that it's dangerous. So every time you put on those glasses, your attention is going straight back onto the visual disturbances because you're thinking that you need to run away from them, which you absolutely don't.
Yeah, and again, it's no different to what we were saying before about the DPDR question, or are there any supplements I can buy at the shop? You know, it's no different to that, really. You're just placing conditions upon you being okay. Like, you're okay with or without the glasses.
Yeah.
Like, you really are. And the glasses, they might give you a little bit of short-term relief, and you might notice an immediate change or reduction in symptoms. But eventually, you know, in the long term, it's just going to keep you stuck.
Yeah, it's short-term relief for long-term suffering. So my advice is stay away from the glasses.
Is there a reason why my DPDR can worsen in the gym, considering I was fine in the gym before I did bong, which caused DPDR? Considering I was fine in the gym before. So I think maybe they're saying that they've had the initial trigger, which was their use of weed, which is
caused them to panic.
Caused them to panic and has brought on the symptom of DPDR. And now I'm thinking that they find it hard in the gym, and they struggle with DPDR in the gym. Yeah,
well, to me, what they're saying is that they struggle with DPDR and the gym is triggering, which it is for many people.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the gym, this is an exposure in itself for many people. When you go to the gym, you might lift something heavy and become lightheaded, which can feel similar to and can frighten us because it can make us feel spacey and out of it, which if you have a fear of fear, which I guess if you're on this channel you do, that can be a trigger, can't it? Or if your heart's racing, that can feel like a trigger as well, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It just simulates the symptoms, doesn't it?
It does. Let's see what questions we have. Yeah. Let's have a look. Oh, have we? That's okay. That's all right. I just wanted to make sure that we hadn't missed any. Oh, okay. Okay. So you still have visual snow, you just ignore it, is one of the questions. What I'm going to say back to that is no, actually, no. So if I was to describe my visual snow and my visual disturbances now, I've done a post talking about this actually on my profile. You can go and take a look. So when my visual snow first onset, I would say it was 100 out of 100. The pixels were huge. I couldn't make out people's expressions. I had all of the random, you know, all the floaters, all of the trailing images, all of this sort of stuff. Then now, I don't notice. Like if I'm not talking about visual snow syndrome, or if I don't have a particularly really stressful day, I would say my symptoms have gone from 100 to 0. Okay. They might flare up if I'm stressed, if I've had a particularly busy work day, or if I'm ill even, but they never go up to that 100 again. They go up to like 5, 10 maybe. But then they pass because I leave them alone and I calm down and I stop being stressed maybe. And I would argue that actually non-anxious people or non-visual snow syndrome people, they will get visual disturbances when they're stressed.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's really, really common.
Normal.
I think that's really, really common. You hear it from all the time. Like, oh, I asked my friends or my relative, like, oh, if you stare at this white wall, do you see, you know, static or visual snow or floaters too? And yeah, but for them, they've not interpreted it as a threat or something they need to desperately not pay attention to or to get rid of.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I remember asking my mum, who's never struggled with this. I was like, Mum, when I was in a really bad place, Mum, do you see all of these floaters and all of these static and all of these things? And I remember she looked at the white wall and she was like, Yeah, Fern, if I try hard enough to look for it, yeah, I can see it. And I bet if there's anyone on here who doesn't struggle with visual snow, Matt's just said, I see static when I'm staring into the sky if I'm daydreaming. People who don't struggle with visual snow syndrome will experience that, you know, when they're just zooming in on something that they wouldn't usually. Yeah, you're gonna see it. Okay.
Yeah. Should we have a couple more? And then we'll get into half an hour now.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone here, we're all just terrified of being afraid.
Yes.
I think essentially, yes, disordered anxiety is a fear of fear.
It's literally a fear of
That is
fear.
what it is.
It is panicking about panic, fear of fear. And yeah, what we need to do about that is to purposefully bring on fear. We need to bring on anxiety, and we need to do exposures. We need to engage in things that we usually avoid because we're scared of how it would feel. And that's how we overcome the fear of fear.
Do SSRIs increase anxiety in visual snow patients?
I don't know really. I think it's each to their own. I think for some people they might say their anxiety's come down. Many other people might say, oh my gosh, I've never felt as anxious, or some people feel suicidal when they go on SSRIs. I don't think there's a correlation there. I think it's a person by person thing.
Yeah, it's subjective, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Someone's just followed up to, you answered that question before. So you consider visual snow just like anxiety. You may have it one day or notice it more, and others it's perfectly fine.
Yes, that's right, exactly. So in my opinion, gosh, I feel like a broken record, I know I say this a lot. In my opinion, visual snow is a symptom of panic. So at the top we have anxiety, okay? And underneath that we have symptoms of anxiety such as visual snow, racing heart, BPDR, what are the ones? Racing thoughts, nausea. And to me, visual disturbances are a symptom of anxiety, okay? Not the other way around, if that makes sense.
Can alcohol make DPDR worse? Well, DPDR is a symptom of anxiety, and alcohol, when you drink it and get drunk, that is an altered state, isn't it? And it can very much simulate the feelings of depersonalization, derealization, and especially the hangover the next day, you know, not feeling 100% and feeling a bit distorted and a headache and unwell essentially as well. You know, it can 100% simulate similar feelings, but it's not to say it makes it worse. You could be in a heightened state of awareness and notice a lot more the symptom, but it's not to say it makes it worse.
No, absolutely not. I know as part of my therapy, because my fear of fear, a huge part of it actually was a fear of BPDR. That was why I went for therapy in the first place, really, when all of this onset. I remember a piece of therapy homework that I was given was to go and get drunk on purpose and to go and experience a hangover. And for me, that was frightening because it felt so similar actually to BPDR. But we need to do exposure therapy to overcome this fear and to prove that BPDR is uncomfortable, yes, but it's not dangerous. We just need to learn how to leave it alone.
Yeah. It's scary, but not dangerous, isn't it? Essentially.
Yes.
Okay, Matt's just asked one more. Which mindfulness tools do you both like to use when experiencing a trigger of agoraphobia?
I must admit, I don't get agoraphobia that much ever, actually, anymore.
Yeah, I've not struggled with it since lockdown.
No.
It's not really something that's in my awareness.
No. If I can cast my mind back to when I used to really struggle with it, I think something actually that I would come back to, and I know that you're familiar with Kimberly Quinlan's work, is wisdom. Okay, so in her workbook, she talks about there's lots of different, I know I'm talking about self-compassion here, I suppose, but she talks about wisdom, that inner wisdom, which is, you know, knowing what to do and knowing that actually we need to face challenges compassionately, but we need to face challenges in order to recover, and having that inner wisdom that staying at home isn't taking us closer to this life that we want, and isn't getting us any closer to our values, our dreams of going on holiday. And for me, I think wisdom was the one that I kept hold of, which can be quite a kick up the backside version of self-compassion, but I really like that. So yeah, that was the big one that I would have personally.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't really struggle with it too much anymore, but casting my mind back, if I could sort of talk to Andy from a few years ago, it would be obviously the approach that we take with our clients is very focused around psychoeducation, isn't it? And I think I would do my best to try and educate younger Andy on like the psychoeducation. And one thing that I often go back to the Sally Winston thing of worried voice, false comfort, and wise mind. It's like, oh, my worried voice,
yes.
Whenever I was in a potential situation that might trigger my agoraphobia, and the false comfort would be like, oh, you just need to do this, or you just need to do this, or tell myself some sort of magic remedy to make it go away. Whereas actually the wise mind now, having learned everything that I have learned, would just be, it's just anxiety. What you're feeling, you're not going to lose control, you're not going to panic and spiral, it's just anxiety, it's just adrenaline.
Yeah, I think wisdom, using that wise mind, I think the psychoeducation is the stuff that I lean on quite heavily. Actually, it makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about recognizing, look, I can tolerate this, I can do hard things, and yes, I'm frightened, yes, I'm scared, but for me it was about right now in this moment, whilst I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, I am rewiring my brain. I am showing my brain that I am safe, and this is going to be awesome for future me. So yeah, I think it's the psychoeducation stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just learning about it from a physiological standpoint as well, like learning about, like the adrenaline and the cortisol and the processing in your brain and what's actually going on. Like now I've spoken to you about, and I want to do like a bit of a series of videos soon about an exposure, because I'm petrified of snakes. So I'm going to do a video about exposure therapy and how it works, why it works, and then put my money where my mouth is essentially and do an exposure at the reptile shop around the corner on snakes.
Can't wait to see that.
And I know that when I've kind of dabbled in it with you there in the past, being able, and again, I must stress that this isn't a mantra that I use to get rid of the anxiety. It's something that I can say to remind myself of what's going on, but it's just adrenaline. Like this feeling that I'm experiencing right now.
It's just a chemical.
It's just adrenaline that it thinks that I'm in danger and it wants me to be safe, but I'm not in any danger. I know about objectively, and it will pass. Yeah. And I need to show it that it doesn't need to be here right now.
Yeah, I love that. I really love that. And what Mika Diva has just said, Michelle, hi Michelle, neuroplasticity is key. It is.
Absolutely.
And this actually, when I was in the depths of my recovery, this was a big thing for me. I remember every single time I would do an exposure, God, I did overdo it. I'm not going to lie. The perfectionist in me overdid recovery because I wanted it over and done really quickly, which came with its own pitfalls, by the way. But I remember every time I would do an exposure, I would be holding on to, I am rewiring my brain right now. And I am literally kind of making changes in my brain that will help me to learn in future that situations that might terrify me aren't safe and are safe and aren't dangerous anymore.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Oh, this has been really fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yes, thank you everyone for all your questions, for those that have done it in the live and that submitted them to us beforehand. For us to read out, I've enjoyed it. Okay.
Yeah, me too. It's been really cool. Thank you everyone for joining and for joining in and everything. And please, if you have any more questions, if you haven't quite got around to yours, please do let us know. Drop us a message and we'll be more than happy to kind of write them down when it comes to future. And of course, if anyone has been watching this and they're like, gosh, I could really do some help. Like I do have a waiting list at the moment, but please DM me if you want to join. But I know that you are taking on new clients as well, aren't you?
I've got a couple of slots available for clients. So yes, please reach out if you feel as though you need a little bit of extra support.
Yeah, we know what it's like. We really, really know what it's like, and we want to be able to help you guys. So yeah, no, you're so welcome. It's been so good to see you all, and we'll be back again soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
How do we end this?